Have you ever walked into a room and felt like no one noticed you? Or worse, that your words had no weight? What if I told you that your most powerful tool isn't your voice, but your presence? In this video, we're going to uncover how to win any situation without saying a word, by mastering the silent language of power, energy, and archetype. It's not manipulation, it's awareness. There is a part of you that enters the room before your feet cross the threshold. That part isn't your voice, your thoughts, or your plans. It is your energy, your presence, your unconscious mind. This silent, unseen force moves like vapor, felt before it's understood, perceived before it's seen. Most people believe communication begins when the mouth opens, when syllables form, when arguments are made. But that's not true. It starts long before that. It begins in the space between your spine and your skin, in the small tension in your jaw, the pace of your breath, the stillness or restness in your gaze. It is felt communication, and it is far more powerful than speech. When you speak without saying a word, what are you really saying? This is the language of the unconscious, unresolved. I don't trust myself. I need approval. I'm afraid you won't accept me. These are messages that leak from a slouched posture, from fidgeting fingers, from eyes that dart without anchoring. Even without intention, the unconscious broadcasts the truth. Not the truth we wish to portray, but the one buried beneath trauma, fear, those ancient scripts running below the surface. It is the body revealing the psyche. A Carl Jung once suggested, though we do not quote him directly here, that the unconscious is not merely personal, but collective. It carries the ancestral, the symbolic, the mythic. So when your presence enters a space, it does not arrive alone. It brings with it every unspoken belief you hold about yourself and the world. Beliefs etched into you by experience, culture, childhood. These beliefs shape how you carry yourself, how you move, how you exist. And the world reads these signals without needing translation. Think of a time you encountered someone whose very presence commanded attention, yet they said little or nothing at all. Why did they feel powerful? What made others listen before a single word was spoken? It wasn't magic. It wasn't manipulation. It was unconscious clarity, an alignment between inner truth and outer expression. The body, the breath, the stillness, all in harmony with something deep and undisturbed. They weren't performing confidence. They were confidence. Compare that to someone whose words are full of bravado, yet their posture trembles. Someone whose speech is sharp, but whose shoulders fold inward. What message does the unconscious send then? It says, this person doubts their own power. This person is grasping. And the room listens not to their words, but to the contradiction beneath them. Silence, in this way, becomes revealing. It is the space where truth speaks loudest. This is why people sense authenticity before they define it. It's not logic. It's resonance. It's why a child will cry in the arms of someone who smiles falsely, or why a room tenses when a person enters with concealed rage. The unconscious doesn't lie because it can't. It doesn't speak in grammar. It speaks in vibration, unresolved. Your unconscious broadcasts its frequency, whether or not your mouth is moving. So, how do you master this? Not by learning new words, but by unlearning false ones. You begin by becoming aware of what your body is saying when your mouth is silent, aware of the energy you carry when no one is watching. Are your shoulders tight? Is your chest collapsed? Is your gaze withdrawn or searching for approval? Each of these is a signal. Each one is a reflection of what's unresolved within. Until you address that inner story, you cannot control your outer impact. You don't fake powerful presence. You uncover it. It's already there. beneath the layers of anxiety, self-judgment, and internal noise. Presence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from alignment. When your inner world stops fighting itself, your outer world begins to reflect strength. The unconscious speaks clearly then, without conflict, without distortion. In every interaction, in every space, you are communicating, even in stillness, especially in stillness. The question is, what is your stillness saying? There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels charged. It's not the absence of noise. It's the presence of something deeper, something rooted, calm, and unshakable. When you enter a room carrying inner stillness, people feel it. They don't always understand it, but they sense it. Like a shift in pressure, like the quiet before a storm. That stillness isn't weakness. It's the highest form of control. Not control over others, but over the only thing you truly can command, yourself. The world responds to energy, not noise. So when your energy is settled, when your breath is slow, and your body isn't screaming for attention, you begin to project a quiet authority that speaks louder than any raised voice ever could. Ask yourself, how often do you feel the need to explain yourself, to prove your point, to justify your presence with words, expressions, performances? That impulse, where does it come from? It doesn't come from power. It comes from inner chaos, from fear, from disconnection. Real influence doesn't need applause to validate it. Real confidence isn't expressed, it's embodied. And embodiment begins in stillness. Not the kind of stillness that is stiff, frozen, lifeless, but the kind that breathes through you like a steady flame, small, focused, persistent. Stillness is presence, and presence is magnetic. In a noisy world, silence is rare, and anything rare becomes valuable. Think about this. How do animals detect danger? Not by speech, not by language, but by energy, by body signals, by stillness. The predator doesn't growl, it watches. The alpha doesn't bark, it stands. Humans haven't evolved beyond this. Our conscious mind might chase words, but our unconscious still listens for something older, something instinctual. So when you walk into a space filled with people vying for attention, the one who does not chase, the one who is still, becomes the center, not because they demanded it, but because they didn't. Stillness is not just physical, it's emotional, mental, psychological. Inner stillness means you're not looking outward for validation. You're not in a rush to interrupt something unresolved. You're not chasing approval with every glance. You aren't vibrating with the need to be liked, to be chosen, to be seen. You are seen because you see yourself. And when you see yourself clearly, others begin to mirror that clarity back to you. No panic, no pretense, no pretending. People confuse silence with submission, but inner stillness isn't passive. It's preparatory, like an archer drawing breath before the release, like the ocean holding its wave, the quiet moment before impact. Stillness gives you space to observe, and observation is power. While others react, you see. While others spill words, you conserve energy. While others seek control, you already own it within. And the irony is, when you no longer need to win, you do. Because power is never loud. It's never desperate. It's never hurried. It doesn't push. It pulls. Imagine standing in front of someone who's completely grounded. They don't fidget. They don't fill the silence with nervous chatter. They meet your eyes. Not to challenge, not to intimidate, but with clarity. You feel it, don't you? That groundedness. Unspoken, but undeniable. You begin to mirror it. You begin to match it. And that's the power. Not domination, but regulation. The one who is still regulates the room. The one who is calm leads the chaos. But where does inner stillness come from? It isn't born, It's built slowly, through awareness, through breath, through honesty with yourself. You cannot fake it. Your body knows when you lie. Your nervous system remembers every unfinished thought, every avoided fear. Stillness comes when you stop running from yourself, when you stop performing, when you stop reacting to every voice in your head telling you, you're not enough. Say something, do something, prove something. You don't have to, you already are. Sit with that. Let it settle in your chest. Let your breath slow. Let your muscles unclench. That's where stillness begins, not in the external world, but inside. Stillness does not mean inaction. It doesn't mean indifference. It means you are acting from depth, not impulse. It means when you choose to speak, people listen, because they know you aren't speaking to fill space. You're speaking from space. And that space, within you, is sacred. That space holds your power. So protect it. Cultivate it. Make your silence say what words never could. What if the parts of you that you avoid, the anger, the jealousy, the insecurity, the fear, aren't weaknesses, but weapons? What if those dark corners of your personality, the ones you were taught to suppress, ignore, or deny, were actually the source of your power in any situation? The truth is, until you face your own shadow, you will never understand why people trigger you, why situations overwhelm you, or why your reactions betray your intentions. The shadow is not evil. It's unseen, and anything unseen, unexamined, controls you without your knowledge. You don't win in silence if your mind is screaming. You don't command presence if your shadow is leaking through your body language. Awareness of your shadow is the first step to conscious strategy. Because what you can name, you can manage. Every interaction is a dance of unconscious forces. You bring your history, your pain, your unmet needs. So do they. But the one who is aware of their internal mechanics, who has mapped their psychological terrain, who can feel emotion without drowning in it, that person becomes the anchor in the storm. Most people don't realize how much their reactions are rehearsed. Automatic scripts, embedded by years of conditioning. They think they're responding to the present, but they're reliving something much older. A childhood wound, a forgotten rejection, an inherited belief that says, I must be right or must not be ignored. And then they wonder, why did I overact? Why did I shut down? Why did I feel powerless? The answer lies in the shadow. Always. You want to win without saying a word. Start by becoming fluent in your own emotional language. Learn to recognize when your anger isn't really about the person in front of you, but about someone long gone. Learn to spot when your need to control is a mask for fear. Watch how your body tightens when someone questions you. Ask, what are you protecting? What story are you defending? This is not weakness. This is psychological mastery. Because the one who knows their shadow does not fear it. And the one who does not fear their shadow cannot be manipulated by it. Powerful presence isn't just calm. It's integrated. It's the kind of energy that says, I've met the darkest parts of myself and I didn't run. I've sat with my rage. I've looked at my shame. I've listened to my insecurity without judgment. And now, they no longer control me. That kind of person doesn't flinch in tension. They don't chase approval. They don't crumble under pressure. Why? Because they know what lives inside them. They've already faced what most people run from. This is why shadow work is not a spiritual trend. It's a survival skill, especially in high-stakes environments. Confrontation, negotiation, leadership. If you don't understand your own emotional undercurrents, others will. And they'll use them. They'll bait your insecurity. They'll trigger your guilt. They'll sense your hidden need to be liked and manipulate it. But when you know your shadow, you don't react. You respond. You don't project. You observe. You become the strategist, not the pawn. Not because you're pretending, but because you're present. Have you ever met someone who, without speaking, made you feel exposed? Not because they were aggressive, but because they were aware. That's shadow integration. They don't need to dominate. They disarm. With one look, with one pause, with one grounded breath. Because they're not just listening to your words. They're reading your patterns. And their silence becomes a mirror, reflecting everything you tried to hide. That's not mysticism. That's depth. And depth wins in a world addicted to surfaces. You don't have to be perfect to have power. You have to be honest. Brutally honest. With yourself. With your impulses. With your fears. When you walk into a room with that kind of inner clarity, people notice. They don't know why, but they notice. You unsettle the shallow. You expose the fake. You make the manipulator hesitate. Not by fighting, not by yelling, but by seeing. Unresolved. Because when you carry your shadow with you, knowingly, you're not hiding. You're not pretending. You're not at war with yourself. And nothing is more powerful than a person who is no longer divided inside. So the next time you feel triggered, pause. The next time someone provokes you, observe. Ask not, how do I beat them? But, what part of me is being touched right now? Is it the part that still feels unheard, unseen, unloved? That awareness, that single moment of self-reflection, can change the entire direction of the encounter. You no longer act from the wound. You act from awareness. And awareness, when silent, is strategy. Words can lie, but energy doesn't. Language can disguise, but behavior always reveals. In any situation where power, influence, or clarity is at stake, the most commanding response is not found in a clever comeback or a rehearsed phrase. It's found in what you do, not what you say. Symbolic action is the language of the unconscious. It bypasses logic. It bypasses argument. It speaks directly to the part of the human psyche that doesn't need persuasion. Just recognition. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to explain to be understood. One gesture, timed precisely, delivered with full presence, can say more than 1,000 justifications ever could. A calm walkout in the middle of chaos. A prolonged gaze instead of a defensive speech. A refusal to flinch when others expect you to fold. These are the statements that imprint themselves into memory. Not because of volume, but because of meaning. People don't remember what you said. They remember how they felt when you didn't say anything at all. The pause, the breath, the posture. These are your real tools, not your vocabulary, but your symbolism. And symbolism is primal. It's ancient. It lives in the same part of the mind that reacts before it reasons. That's why when you stand tall during conflict, you signal strength without a needing to declare it. When you choose stillness instead of a reaction, something unresolved, you're not being passive, you're being deliberate. You're making a statement without opening your mouth. And that statement echoes louder than noise ever could. Have you noticed how the most powerful people often speak less, something unresolved? It's not because they have nothing to say. It's because they understand when to say it. And more importantly, when not to. Their actions fill the gaps where words would only dilute. They shift their weight, and suddenly the room feels different. They sit back in silence, and tension builds in others. Not because they are trying to intimidate, but because they are rooted, measured, conscious. The unconscious picks up on this immediately. There is something about this person. It says, something I can't quite define, but I feel it. That's symbolic power. That's influence without performance. Think of it this way. The human mind evolved long before language. We communicated through posture, movement, facial tension, spatial awareness. Before we ever wrote laws, we used body language to negotiate survival. That programming still runs beneath the surface. So when you react impulsively, defensively, or emotionally, you're not leading, you're submitting. You're broadcasting insecurity, even if your words say the opposite. But when your actions are intentional, symbolic, and restrained, you become the stimulus. You become the center, and everyone else begins to react to you. But symbolic action must come from alignment, not performance. It must arise from inner clarity, not ego. If you withdraw from an argument to punish, it's manipulation. But if you withdraw because the conflict no longer aligns with your values, then your silence becomes sacred. If you walk away in pride, you provoke. If you walk away in peace, you transform. The difference isn't in the movement, it's in the meaning behind it. And that meaning is felt, not explained. We live in a world obsessed with words, texts, speeches, statements. Everyone wants to say something, but very few understand the power of doing something. Subtly, strategically, symbolically. When you cross your arms and lean back at the right moment. When you remain still while others are fidgeting with their fear. When you delay your response, not to calculate a win, but to let truth rise naturally. These actions, these small, deliberate choices, change the course of conversation. They change perception. They shift dynamics in ways no argument ever will. In symbolic action, timing is everything. Too soon, and it feels forced. Too late, and the moment's gone. You must be present to act with meaning. You must be in tune with your environment, reading cues, feeling energy, watching for shifts. That's what makes symbolic power so rare, because it requires awareness. And awareness is earned, not inherited. When someone enters a room and people fall silent, it's not the person they respect. It's the energy that person has cultivated. An energy that says, I know who I am. I don't need to react to be real. I don't need to speak to be seen. I am enough, as I am, right now. So the next time you find yourself in a high-pressure moment, don't rush to explain. Don't scramble to justify. Don't let your words protect you from discomfort. Instead, slow, feel, sense, act. Only when action speaks clearer than speech. If your body is telling the truth, let it speak. If your presence is rooted in calm, let it stand on its own. You'll find that the deepest form of communication often happens in the space between words. In the way you hold yourself. In the way you choose stillness. In the way you allow your silence to carry the message that no sentence ever could. In a world overwhelmed by noise, distraction, and constant verbal reaction, the true advantage belongs to the one who understands the silent game. To win any situation without saying a word is not about arrogance or avoidance. It is about mastery, mastery of presence, mastery of stillness, mastery of the unconscious signals that shape how others see you long before you ever speak. When you cultivate inner stillness, you stop reacting. You begin to radiate. When you face your shadow, you stop defending. You begin to understand. And when you act with symbolic intent rather than verbal desperation, you shift from influence to impact. This isn't about speaking less. It's about knowing when silence says more. Because the most powerful voice is often the one that doesn't need to raise itself to be heard.